Right, big update coming in, and I mean a big one, because Carlos Baliba to Manchester United is officially back on the table. Not signed, not medical, not done deal, but back on the table. And after everything that's happened with this saga, that alone is massive news. I also want to get into the striker situation later, because there's a Benjamin Cesco angle I need your thoughts on. But we start with Baliba, because the timeline on this one is wild. So here's the update. Baliba's camp have reopened contact with Manchester United to gauge whether a move could happen this summer. And crucially, the approach has come from the player's side again, just like it did 12 months ago. This isn't United sniffing around out of habit. This is Baliba's people picking up the phone. Let me give you the full story here because context matters. 12 months ago, Baliba was pushing hard, and I mean hard, to join United. Personal terms were agreed. The player saw Old Trafford as the dream move, but Brighton wouldn't budge off their valuation, which at the time was north of £100 million, and United weren't willing to match it. Deal collapsed. Baliba stayed at the Amex, and what happened next? His form dipped. Some of that, by all accounts, was the speculation weighing on him. A player who thought he was gone, who wanted to be gone, then has to go back out and play like nothing happened. That's not easy for anyone. So drop your thoughts in the chat right now. Are you a believer in Baliba? Are you starting to come back around on this one? I know there's a split in this community, and that's completely fine. Everyone's entitled to their take here. I'll be honest with you. I was hard on him last season. Watching him week to week, I did not think he looked like a Manchester United midfielder. But the more this window rolls on, the more I keep coming back to one thing. The talent is in there. We've all seen it. The question is whether United and Carrick can get it back out of him. And here's why the value proposition still makes sense, even with the dip in form. His price has reportedly dropped from that £100 million plus ask down to around £70 million, partly because of exactly what I just described, a rough season affected by transfer noise. 22 years old, ball-winning numbers among the best in his position when he's right, strong in the duels, aerial presence, genuinely useful with the ball at his feet when his confidence is up. That's a profile United are missing since Casemiro left. I'm not saying he's Casemiro, he isn't there yet, but the raw ingredients for that kind of engine in midfield are present. Think about the balance too, and Santos brings the legs and the energy. Yuri Tielemans brings control and experience. And if Kobe Mainoo is going to be a nailed-on starter under Carrick, which is what we're hearing, then Baliba slots in as exactly the kind of physical, ground-covering profile that lets Mainoo do what he does best. Further forward, on paper, that's a serious midfield. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend this isn't a gamble, because it is. Someone in the chat put it perfectly. Describe what United need, and Baliba ticks almost every box except consistency. And consistency is the one thing this squad cannot afford to keep buying on hope. That's fair. That's a completely fair worry. You are betting on a player getting back to his best level rather than buying a player who is already there. And after a summer of the fan base saying no more gambles, no more potential, we need the finished article. Bringing in Baliba on the back of a dip in form is, at minimum, an awkward look. Here's another wrinkle worth knowing. It sounds like the momentum on this cooled off for a stretch. Some reports suggest United went quiet on him around the turn of the year, and it's not fully clear yet whether the club is genuinely ready to go back in or whether this is Baliba's side testing the water on their own. Other names are still very much in the mix too. Manu Kone at Roma, Alex Scott at Bournemouth, Sander Berge. Tchouaméni's situation at Real Madrid is being watched closely as well, since a Rodri to Madrid deal could shake something loose there. So even with talks reopening, Baliba is one option among several, not a formality. Let me read a few of these out because the chat is going off. I wouldn't, only because we spent the whole summer saying we want the finished product, not another gamble. I hear you, and I said as much a minute ago, it's a fair worry. I'd rather get Sander Berge. Respectfully disagree. If we were doing Berge, it should have happened. A couple of years back, not really sold on that one this summer. Baliba and Mainoo is more balanced than any other combo we could build. Big if attached to that one, but if Baliba gets back to the level Brighton thought he'd reach, that pairing genuinely excites me. And someone just said we've raised the floor of this squad but not the ceiling, which is an interesting way to put it, and honestly worth sitting with. So where does that leave us? Talks have reopened. The interest from the players' side looks genuine. The price has come down to something United can actually justify. But nothing here says signed, nothing says medical, and nobody serious is reporting this as confirmed. This is a live one to watch, not a deal to celebrate yet. I'll bring you the update the second that changes, and with this window still open, it could change fast. Right, quickly, before I let you go enjoy the rest of your day. Teams back in for Manchester United against Rosenborg, and I want your eyes on the Andre Santos watch during that one. Also keeping tabs on whether JJ Gabriel finally gets some real first-team minutes, because there's a star among our academy ranks there, and I want to see him given the chance. One more thing before we wrap. Benjamin Cesco, have you seen the transformation? There's been a proper debate online about him bulking up over the summer, with some people worried it'll cost him his lightness on the feet and his pace. I actually land on the other side of this. I always thought he needed to use his physical tools more. He's got the height, he's got the frame, and if he can add strength without losing that quickness, he becomes a nightmare for defenders to handle. Someone who can hold the ball up and bully centre-backs rather than get bounced off it. Remember the shin injury last season, getting shoved off the ball in situations he should have held his ground in. If the added muscle stops that happening again while he keeps his speed, that's a net positive both for his output and for keeping him fit. Let me know if you agree. A few more super chats just landed while I've been talking, so let me get through these before we go. He's only 22 though, and if Carrick can get hold of him, yeah, I keep coming back to that too. Michael Carrick's reputation as a midfield coach specifically is exactly why this profile makes sense under him more than it would have under the last regime. Someone else asks about Alex Scott instead. I'd love Alex Scott genuinely, but I don't see United paying 80+ million for him this summer. I think that one's more or less done and dusted as far as this window goes. And one more here saying Baliba had one good season, was in and around France's midfield. Picture at the World Cup and is now cheaper than he was 12 months ago. So why are we even hesitating? Fair question. I think the honest answer is the club got burned once already on the price, and nobody wants to be the one explaining a second failed pursuit of the same player to the fan base. Let's talk about what getting it right actually looks like here, because I don't think it's as simple as sign him or don't. If United go back in, the smart move is doing it early rather than dragging it into deadline week again, because the drag is exactly what hurt Baliba's form last time. A quick, clean deal, minimal noise, gets him in the building and working with Carrick with time to actually settle before the season picks up pace. Do it late, under pressure, with the price creeping back up because Brighton sense desperation, and you risk repeating the exact pattern that hurt everyone last summer. So if this is happening, the how matters just as much as the who. I also want to flag something separate but related while we're on the topic of midfield business elsewhere in Europe. There's a bit of a domino situation building with Tchouaméni and Rodri, and if that moves, it could open a door for United on a completely different midfielder entirely, which would change the calculus on Baliba overnight. Worth keeping one eye on that while this Baliba situation plays out, because these transfer dominoes rarely happen in isolation. One deal completing elsewhere in Europe often either frees up a player United actually want more, or forces their hand on the one they're currently talking to. Right, that's everything on the midfield front for now. To summarize where we actually stand. Talks have reopened. The interest from Baliba's side looks real. The price has dropped to something workable, but there is no agreement with Brighton, no medical, and nothing here is close to confirmed. Anyone telling you otherwise right now is getting ahead of the actual reporting. I'll bring you the update the moment that changes, and given how this window's been going, it might not take long. That's everything for now. Drop your Baliba verdict in the comments, believer or not, and I'll see you all for kickoff.